There you go.
You said public comment was next. You said public comment would be coming after that?
I'm not going to tolerate people calling out. I want you to stop that immediately. I will have the officer escort you out if you refuse to leave.
Dang.
Officer, would you remove this gentleman in the green shirt? And the woman sitting next to him?
What did I do? What exactly did I do? What's the regulation? We'll deal with this.
5-minute recess so he can deal with it because he's going to have to.
We have public comment.
You guys would have learned about messing with us.
Of the meeting, you may give a speaker a round of applause.
No, they haven't heard enough. That's the problem. You need to leave. That's the problem. They haven't heard enough. Leave right now. Nazi. Hey.
During the public comment portion, you may give a speaker a round of applause after they finish speaking. If you agree with them or you hear something that you like, you can signal by raising your hands and we can see that. I will not tolerate any demonstrations, people standing up, walking around, shouting out. If you are out of order, I'm going to ask you to sit down or stop it, and if you refuse, I will ask you to leave.
We did
If you refuse to leave, I will have the officers escort you out. And if you refuse to be escorted out, you may be subject to arrest at the discretion of the officers.
It's hard to get people.
Let's move on.
Okay.
This is, it is 8:34. We're going to adjourn this meeting at 9:04. We have 19 people signed up to speak. If everyone uses their full 2 minutes, only 15 people will speak. So let's call the first speaker.
Okay, so I'll call 3 at a time, which is our normal practice. We'll start with Dia Good, if Dia is here, Greg Glavinovich, and then Mac Worthy.
Follow up on my multi-layered complaint discussed the past 2 weeks. You've heard examples of the following allegations: fraud, misappropriation of funds, conflict of interest, and using city resources for personal gain. Tonight I'd like to touch on nepotism and sweetheart deals. Prior to coming to Front Street in 2012, the Front Street Media Court contractor was employed as an entry-level receptionist at the SPCA. In July of 2013, he was paid $1,600 a month. In 2014, his contract was extended with no change in scope of services to $3,500 a month. Then in 2015, he was hired as a Step 8 program analyst at $6,643 a month plus allowances. This was a direct hire with no internal or external recruitment. The graph shows the first year's salary increase of 119% with an additional 90% increase the following year for a total of 300% increase in 2 years. But there was a snag in the hiring process. There were problems with his application, and that was resolved by having a manager in the community development department on city time rework the application. So I ask you, with all due respect, is having top-level staff rework an application a new city service for job seekers? And is it ethical or job-worthy for an applicant to convey, I have no issues with you changing any of the information to what you see fit? So after the manager's review, I would request an investigation from an outside party. And thank you very, very much.
Greg?
Hi, my name is Kat. You guys are disgusting, by the way, doing this to people. Public comment is supposed to get the public involved in what goes on in our city and to make it harder for people to take part in the process. I was going to bring my son here tonight for homeschooling to teach him how our government works. And I am so glad I didn't, because if I did, my son would be like seriously confused about what government is supposed to be like. You guys are a horrible example, and this is not where he will learn what government is like. I just want to tell you, a day in the life of an unhomed person, the invisible class, they basically spend the whole day avoiding violence, sexual assault, exposure to elements, cops, humiliation, degradation, seeking shelter, bathrooms, showers, safety, food, clothing, comfort, companionship. The camping ban prevents an unhomed person from achieving most of these basic human needs. It is inhumane, cruel, and unusual punishment and unconstitutional. And there's a 350-person waiting list for women to get into a shelter. I was homeless on the streets. 98.5% of women experience sexual assault on the streets multiple times, just being homeless for 3 months. Okay? This is a really serious issue, and I'd also like to read one more thing to you. I don't know that it matters. Sometimes I think you guys are just apathetic. We, the people of Sacramento, have grown tired of your continued disrespect of the public, encouraging members of the public to leave before the meeting is over. The city manager appears to be sleeping during public comments in front of those who have been arrested for sleeping, laughing and applauding for causes.
Thank you very much for your comments.
The council supports while attempting to silence the same for dissenting views, texting and looking at your phones while people speak, moving council comments to before public comments, and much more. If the city council expects more respect from the public, please respect the public. Thank you.
We, the people of Sacramento, have grown tired of the City Council's continued disrespect of the public, encouraging members of the public to leave before the meeting is over, silence the voices of those of us who address the council later in the meeting. The city manager sleeping during public comments in front of those whom have been arrested for sleeping shows inordinate disrespect, barring some medical issue that I don't know about. Apparently, you really can't buy a heart even with $250,000 annually.
Mayor Pro Tem, point of order.
Laughing and applauding for causes the council supports by attempting to...
1 second, please.
Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, calling out individuals on the dais I don't think is allowed. The comments from the public are supposed to be directed to the council as a whole, not to individuals or staff.
Fairly, I will continue my comments to the council as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, boy. Laughing and applauding for causes that the council supports while attempting to silence the same common public behaviors for dissenting views is selective enforcement of your council conduct rules. Texting and looking at your phones while people speak is demoralizing. Moving council comments to before public comments displays the hierarchical nature of this council and shows how out of touch you are with your people. And there is so much more. Like, I love Bike Month. I'm very big about bike, but why is it that you have signs and we do not? It doesn't seem fair. If the council desires more respect from the public, it would stand to reason that the public should be granted that same courtesy from this council. I hear that you are frustrated. I understand that you individually are not responsible for Sacramento's state of economic injustice. However, I equally understand that as a council, you are mandated to make necessary policy changes that meet the needs of your people. And yet you individually and collectively have chosen to uphold this obscene ordinance and order the assault of your most vulnerable community members. The most vulnerable. Please, create affordable housing, build permanent 24-hour restrooms, new shelters, triage centers, tiny houses, all the things. Allow a tent city. Please do all of this. But until one of you, or preferably all of you, I still have hope, preferably all of you, get loud and this genocidal ordinance is repealed, you will in fact remain the behemoth that we stand in front of daily, ready for battle.
Thank you for your comments.
Said that you had a responsibility and you didn't have the privilege of shirking that responsibility or ignoring the need. And here, one of our forefathers that everybody loves, can we get that on the screen? Okay. Abraham Lincoln said, the politics and governmental leadership is the wise employment of individual meanness for the public good. So what everyone's complaining about is the inimical, hostile, unfriendly behavior that we see. It's pretty alarming, and it reminds us of the condition we were in during a reign of terror prior to Mayor Johnson's term, and prior to Jerry Brown's term, and prior to Obama's term. Most people were pretty devastated during that reign of terror. And now it seems that because of the political scene and the new election cycle, that we're going back to, now I know I didn't use up all that time. It's going a little fast, don't you think? So it seems like, paying the privatized government was a means of paying for fire insurance so the mafia wouldn't burn down our businesses. But now it seems like our businesses are being burned down, our houses are being burned down, and we're being murdered anyway. So maybe it's time to nullify and deracinate all of and root out those private-public contracts that are not serving us and that are obviously become very pernicious. The renewable energy that you're doing, and it's going to be for everyone. There was a special on Sunday. This is very important. You are harming people. I think this
Thank you for your comments.
I think this
Would
is
you
a
call the
good
next speaker?
example of the
Okay, our
way
next speaker then is Pastor Gainsborough.
That's fine. Radiation from being in one of your buildings.
Pastor Gainsborough?
Using renewable energy.
Your time is up. Would you please be seated? I will ask you again, would you please be seated? Would you have her removed from the arena, from the auditorium? We're marking down the ones we're removing.
Can't write it off as a volunteer program. Radiation burns. Torture.
Pastor Gainsborough?
Thank you. Just want to say it's great that the city is bouncing back from the 2008 economic crash that the whole country experienced. And the $968 million budget, as I said previously, if we're only looking at $1 million out of that, that would be 0.001. 1/100th of 1%, 1/10 actually of 1%. I'd like to see $2 million set aside to not just try to break even, but to move ahead on the situation. Some of my friends were out there for 30 or 40 nights in the rain with the Occupy City Hall. I don't say that all they did was right, but if we had had a triage resource center, as Salt Lake City does, that houses 1,000 homeless people, to process them in the continuum of care, they could have been offered shelter or a city jail, but as Lieutenant Monk and Emily and Sister Libby and Ryan Lufborough, the head of Sacramento Steps Forward, told me themselves, you're right, Jonathan, we don't have something at night. But I believe we're moving on it, and Councilman Chenier and the task force, Jeff Harris and Steve Hansen, I applaud your targeting that. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. We all know it costs more to put somebody in prison than it does to run them through college. And so in my remaining time, I just want to say that there are 16 closed Sacramento schools, and I spoke twice to the Sacramento City Unified School District Thursday night. They're looking at Jefferson School, which I was glad Councilman Hansen had been there the previous week. If we could take one of those schools...
Thank you for your comments.
And just help shelter the 13,000 homeless students...
Thank you for your comments.
...in Sacramento. We would be taking a light...
Call the next speaker.
Okay, the next speaker.
I did have a point of order or a point of information. And that shouldn't count against my time because it is asking about the rules of the council. The question or point of information that I had was, if we do decide, the council decides to move a public comment matters, and council matters, to move those agenda items, should not someone have to move and second those before it's actually moved? And secondly, to my point of order to the mayor, is that if we're going to ask that we not call out folks for negative things, I'd ask that we not call out for positive things also, and you hold accountable on both sides. My time shouldn't, that point of order should still have to be answered.
You have 2 minutes to address the council.
This is not what democracy is supposed to look like. The idea that you can stand and prevent people from having their voice and removed out reminds me of Bull Connor and water hoses being turned on people. It's disgusting. It's disgusting to see that the people love their city enough to come and talk to you about what happens, and what you do is say, we want these people removed. To the person sitting in this booth back here, I hope they start to report on what happens in this city. They don't, because they're sued for silence. The silence about what happens in this city is criminal. I came to speak about one thing and looked at the actions of what happened in this council tonight and found it absolutely deplorable. You say no to poor people being able to use the bathrooms. You say no to poor people being able to get water. You say yes to cleaning up a pond so that dogs can have more room to poop in it. You say yes to the most ridiculous things. But when people come to ask you for your help in this city, you say removed. That's not compassion. It's disgusting.
Tim Church is Jamar Jefferson, and then Abe. Earlier, the city manager said that the recession did a lot of damage in Sacramento, and I think that was just a drop in the bucket to the damage done by the shadow government that continues to operate out of some of your offices, including the phantom mayor. The flagrant lack of transparency has been status quo in Sacktown since 2008, it's clear. Absurd that so much silence surrounds this municipal governance. It seems anybody who asks questions gets sued, including journalists, independent media outlets, and even the city of Sacramento itself. The mayor's task force on gang prevention just released close to, I think, $700,000 in grant money, and there was a month for the RFP to be processed, and only 36 out of 586 nonprofit organizations applied for funding, 18 of which received money. The SACBE reporter, I think who's still here, Ellen Garrison, wrote an article on SES, which I think was a fantastic program that received some of the money, but I found it really interesting that there was no discussion of the other 17 grant recipients. So I did some digging. I have questions about 8 of them. I clearly won't have time tonight to get into all of them, but I'll be back. The number one is that why did the city of Sacramento give East Bay Asian Youth Center $38,000? Really? East Bay? Number 2, the Hawk Institute, which claims to be a, quote, leadership academy for at-risk young men of color and underserved male students, who provides college and career support as well as opportunities for community involvement and student leadership. We gave this organization $38,000. However, their website is specific to black men leadership only, and so we did a little survey around the Sac City College campus and Lite Rail. We found that out of 250 black men asked, not a single man had heard of the Hawk Institute. So I think that their outreach is flagrantly lacking. Number 3, Focus on the Family received $30,000. I hope to God that this is not the same organization that is the anti-LGBT, anti-abortion group that is Bible-based. Number 4, Always Knocking. This group doesn't even have a list of a business phone online, but they received $30,000.
Thank you for your comments.
Hey, Tom?
I'm Tom Schrag. I live in District 5, and I apologize. I have sort of a mundane issue. I don't have a PowerPoint, and I don't really have the passion of the other speakers, but I do have a visual aid. And the visual aid is, I turned on my tap today, and it's like I'm living in Flint. This comes out. So they're working on the water mains. It was interesting. They talked about water quality. As a physician, I know that one of the biggest advances in medicine has been improvement of public health and water quality. So I'm sitting there saying, what's the particulates? What are the pathogens? What are the toxins? What's the half-life for this to go away? Do I have to clean my hot water tank? How about the other people downstream? This is just what's visible. What else is in there? So I think it really calls into question the methodology and the practices of the people that break apart our water mains and then put them together, if this can get in it. That's all. Thank you.
Would you call 311 and report your issue to the Utilities Department?
I'll be happy to.
Okay.
But the question is then, when can I drink it?
Jamar?